I might upon you on the rostrum, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatha Yahweh, Ma'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hashabath, Bashalawam, Thawada, Amun. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. Taha'ai Ma'ad Asherai Makad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayanyam Ya Oh Haharayim Mayan Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Mayahawa Shai Shemayim Warataza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Shashamarka Hana La'a Yanawam Wala'a Yayashun Shashuma Yasharala Yahweh Shemaya Yahweh Tazaya I'll Yam Yinya Yawamam Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wayrak La'a Baliyala Yahweh Yashamaya Mako Ra Yashama Napasha Yahweh Yashama Hawalakia Wabuaya Ma'aitha Wa'ai Iwalam Basham Yahawasha Thawada Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Lord is thy keep. Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and forever.
Amen. Shema Yashrala, hear, O Israel. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, Shema Yasharallah Yahweh Allah Haynawa Yahweh Echad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord.
Sapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shemka, Yahweh, Balak Lefka, Saba'ah, Ratazawanka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'aratazar, Ka, Bashemayim, Nathanawa, Lakham, Yowum, Sa, Wasalakanawa, Kabawathanawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathanawa, Wala'ah, Habiyanawa, O, Nasayawan, Abo, Awashinawa, Murai, Kaya, Laka, Amalakwa, Waha'ala, Watapara, La'aiwalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, and forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Ha'aishara Matazawab, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya. La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Pasol, Wala'ah, Tha'ibadam. La'ah, Alakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayika, Lashua. Zakar, Hayawun, Hashbath, Lakodashwa. Kabah, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka. La'ah, Taratazak. La'ah, Tana'a. La'ah, Tagana. La'ah, Taina, Shakur. La'ah, Takhamad. Ko, Ashara, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Exodus 20:3. Before shall not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bound thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. I shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and honored it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Shabbat, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Yasha Allah. I model upon your Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem for the open prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hakadol, Rakhawam, Abiyah, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Shaw, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wakal, Debarim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Papalah, Yawaitazah, Yahawashai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Ainka, Yasha'Allah, Izanawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'Allah, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawamim, Makwadam, Baba Kusha, Shalat, Mayaka'Allah, Wahataz Wadak, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa. Ba'aikur, Shalat, Aroka, Shon, Yahawashai, Lanawa, Walamadnawa, Rabian, Kakama, Kabawana, Wada'aith, Shon, the Baraka. Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Thawada, Thamyad, Ba'iwalam, Aman. English translation. Salak, and I did not read the English translation for the blessing of the fruit of the vine. I'm going to read that one first. So the previous prayer was, Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. And the current prayer we just read in the Hebrew, in the English translation, is Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathanawa, Awar, Lara Awak. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathanawa, Koran, Ha'ayal, Lakwara, Ha'ain. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathanawa, Hasheman, Zayah, Lamashak, Yasha'Allah. Shabbat, BC. Right, shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings to the brothers and sisters throughout HYK, as well as all the other Israelites who are worshiping, keeping the Sabbath day holy. Those who are new, who are watching us, this is the Sabbath day, Sabbath service, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. We're keeping the Sabbath service to the Lord. So we say peace and blessings to you all. Ashar Shabbat, which is in the Hebrew, happy Sabbath. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Power. His Hebrew name is Yahweh. And give also salutations to our beloved Savior, the wise counselor, Yahweh Shai, which is the Hebrew name of what we today say Jesus, right? But it's Yahweh Shai. So we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in Christ for allowing us to come together today on the Sabbath day. Most High's will. Everyone is in good spirits. Remember, we're supposed to cast our burdens on Yahweh Shai and then come before the Lord with an open heart to now show gratitude, thanksgiving, and give him his praise. So I also give salutations to those who are watching on the live stream right now. Akwath the Warrior, Akwath Zion, Elder Zaquan, and also Akwath Rabakwa, Ak Lab Tawab. And when we say Ak, that's brother, and Akwath, which is sister, and the Shivas. So we want to give salutations to all those who have not posted something. Again, shalom to you as well. Those who are listening on the teleconference line, as far as for, you know, another medium of how we all dial in to the Sabbath service, we say shalom to you as well. Shalom, Ak, Manashah, Wa Aliyah Aina. Shalom to you all. Today is the Sabbath day. This is Hayashra Kanas, which is the Hebrew form of the Congregation of Israel, where we teach the laws, statutes, commandments found in the Bible, the testimonies, the laws. When you read in Isaiah 8:20, it says, if they speak not according to this word, it says to the law and to the testimony, right? To the laws of the Bible, to the testimonies found in the Bible, right? Which pertains to the history, prophecies, certain things that went on in that time, all centered around the law, right? So to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them, right? So we want to be the righteous, enlightened ones of the Most High, right? We get our light from the law, right? The Most High's Bible, the commandments is a lamp for us, where we go and we try to now come out of darkness, come out of the ways of society, the customs that we were keeping before. We have now cleansed ourselves with this lamp, right? It tells you in Psalms 119:9, how shall a man cleanse his way? It's by taking heed to thy word, right? Kind of a little paraphrasing. I can't remember if it's totally like that, but gets the gist. So that's what we do here at HYK, Hayashra Kanas. We go into the Old Testament, read the laws and the testimonies. We go into the New Testament, same thing. And we also go into the Apocrypha, same thing, right? That's where we now find out about our true heritage, the Lord's will, and how do we prepare ourselves in these last days for the things and the events and that are coming, and how we now get redemption from our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, as he embarks upon his second coming into the earth to bring judgment and to give salvation to his chosen or his elect. So these are the tenets that we read from out of the Bible, and it's mainly geared towards, right? Because the Bible is a manual script for the children of Israel, right? The children of Israel are those who are the descendants of a particular group of people, right? Not everybody can just align themselves to the Bible, because the Most High does have all nations identified in the Bible, their progenitors, and then who they are in these last days. So when you read the storyline, the main characters of this Bible, of this book, are the children of Israel, and then you have the surrounding sub characters, right? So those whose ancestors on their father's side, dating back at least 3 to 4 generations, when you can prove out your genealogy, who fit the description, fits those historical references of those who came over on cargo slave ships from West Africa during the times of the transatlantic slave trade over to North, Central, and South America, right? And then there was others that have been taken to other areas, portions of the sub-Saharan slave trade. Those descendants, those children of those slaves today are the 12, or a portion of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. And then the other portion are those who were already here in the Americas known as the Native Indians, right? You get the, North American Indians, Seminole Indians, Arawak, Taino, Cherokee, so forth and so on. Those who are in this land, in this region, I know they're trying to take out a lot of the history for today's generation. They don't learn these things in the same vein that when I was coming up in school, that they at least taught about the so-called Native American Indians dwelling in this land before the Europeans came over to steal the land, rape, pillage, and plunder, to the point where you don't even see them in North America as a people anymore, right? So those descendants of those original so-called Native Indians in North, Central, and South America, also portions of Canada, not all of Canada, but certain portions of Canada, those are on their father's side, a portion of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. So what we do is we go into the Bible, we read out these testimonies, we prove all things, like it says in 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Right? These things that we're saying, we have to prove them through scripture, precept upon precept, right? That is our obligation. And then we can either also identify different historical references as it pertains to other nations and their empires and how they treated us or mistreated us, how we fell victim to being in those circumstances or in those captivities because we had an oath with the Most High to keep these principles. And if we didn't keep them, the Most High used the other nations at times to punish us or enslave us, right? So a lot of that information sometimes is hidden, right? It's not widely broadcasted out. And it takes the Most High to raise up his chosen people, provide them with the knowledge to now go out and share and teach to the rest of the congregation. So this is what we do on Sabbath days, as well as during class times during the week. All right. So I know we started a bit late today. Normally we try to start at least before noon. I say Salakia, we were handling some discussions here, but Lord's will, we'll get into the service itself. We're going to be in 1 Chronicles chapter 26 and 27. Understanding that when we go previously into the Chronicles, it's a chronicalization. Sometimes it's reiterating certain things that were already events from the past. People gives you the lineage of certain names of people that participated in certain things, tribe lineages, chiefmen from them. And what we're going to read now is getting into the different administrations that was established by the kings. Right, particularly in this case, King David, and how he established the administration within the whole nation and how that broke down. So I'm going to read about different men. I'll try to point out, it's not a long chapter because you're going through different men and their offices and where they should be, but I'll try to point out certain references to certain men just to highlight the importance. Because sometimes when we read, you're going through the Chronicles, just read names, but some of these names have historical references that also enlighten us about other things. All right, so I'm going to jump into 1 Chronicles chapter 26. And if I had said it, my name is Kahan Samak. Samak in Hebrew means support, but that's my name. So I'm privileged to preside over the Sabbath service for today. All right, so we'll jump into 1 Chronicles chapter 26 and 1. So it reads, 1 Chronicles chapter 26 and verse 1. It says, concerning the divisions of the porters of the Korhites was Meshelemiah, the son of Kor, of the sons of Asaph, right? So now it's giving you the breakdown of the porters, or like gatekeepers for the lack of a better term, right? These were different men who had the position of now establishing and protecting the city, protecting certain areas. And when we talk about a gatekeeper, we're not just talking about somebody who just had to stand post. These individuals were faithful men. They had an important duty. because they had to protect the city. They had to protect certain areas. So these were not people who were subjected or should have been subjected to bribery, right? Falling, sleeping at the wheel, and is our expression, where they were not paying attention. They came late, right? You know how sometimes in our daily work schedules, you're supposed to be at work at 8, you come in at 8:10, or you're supposed to be there, at a certain meeting, and you walking in late, because I had to do. No, they couldn't do that. These were men that were elected, right, and in certain cases by the Most High Himself, right, and we'll explain that, right. The Most High Himself elected certain men to now take these chief positions. So King David, when he's ordering these individuals who are porters or gatekeepers, right, is now going into those men and their history. So here it says of the Korhites. So the Korhites is interesting because when you read in the Old Testament, this family had a very interesting historical reference when you go into their lineage. Go to Numbers, the 26th chapter. Actually, start at Exodus chapter 6 before we get into the story. Go to Exodus chapter 6. And verse 24. So Exodus 6 and 24 says, and the sons of Korah, Asher, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These are the families of the Korhites, right? So that's what we're reading about in 1 Chronicles 26. We're reading about these Korhites that come from out of the line of Korah, right? So now we understand the correlation between the two, the man and that family. Now go to Numbers chapter 16. Numbers chapter 16 and 1. So Numbers 16 and 1 says, now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, right? Princes, again, like we mentioned in the class, are like the heads or leaders of certain families. It said fathers in the congregation, men of renown, right? So explain when it's talking about the princes, these are men that have a reputation, right? So they were chosen or elected because of how they conducted themselves. It says, verse 3, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord, right? So you son Moses and Aaron said, listen, everybody here is holy. Everybody here is separate to the Lord. Why did that you brothers have to now take all this responsibility upon yourselves? Verse 4, and when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face, and he spake unto Korah and unto all his company, saying, even tomorrow the Lord will show you who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him who we have chosen will he cause to come near unto him, right? So sometimes you have people who become covetous and prideful. They want to now take the responsibility that they see other people have, right? That happens. It happened back then and happens even today. Even within Moses' immediate circle, he had his own sister buck up against him as to his role, how the Most High selected or chosen him to play that position. So now here is a group of men who are esteemed men that have now come to Moses to now try to take his role or take his position or take portions of it so they can get the fame like him. Reading on, it says verse 6, this too take ye censors Korah and all his company. Remember, Korah was the one who now his descendants were the Korhites. It says, and put fire therein and put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. And Moses said unto Korah, here I pray ye, sons of Levi, seemeth it but a small thing unto you, that the power or God of Israel have separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? And he hath brought thee near to him, and all the brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also, for which cause both you, so like both thou and all thy company, are gathered together against Yahweh. When it says the Lord, speaking about the Most High. And what is Aaron that ye murmur against him? So now Moses is now kind of call him out. Like, you think this is a small thing. Sometimes small matters in one person's eyes is really a big deal, right? And this is not a small matter, because the Most High has a hierarchy. He chooses certain nations. He chooses a nation, a tribe, a family, a person to do certain duties. You can't cross that, right? The tribe of Judah can't go into the temple and become the priests. The tribe of Levi can't go into the palace and be the kings, right? There's certain offices and duties that have now been given to certain individuals, thus saith the Lord. And these men are trying to circumvent that process. Verse 12, and Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, we will not come up. It is a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou make thyself altogether a prince over us, right? So now they even bucking up, saying that we came out of Eden to come in the wilderness to die, just so that you can pump yourself up, just so that you can become a king or a prince over us. This is the reason why you're doing it. Verse 14, moreover, thou hast not brought us into a land that flowed with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up, right? Because Moses' reputation preceded him because of what he did to the Egyptians, how he went and slew them, right? So they knew that Moses was a person that was about that. And they still didn't respect Moses. And they looked at it where they was in the wilderness, dwelling in tents. That's what we're about to embark on in about a month. And it was like, this ain't the land that flows with milk and honey. I don't see the honey. I don't see the cattle and all these things that you promised us. Where's that at? These men not knowing that the Most High had us go into the wilderness to prove these men out. Certain spirits have to be proven out, have to be made manifest so the Lord can judge it. For us to go into the Holy Land, the Most High wants good, righteous spirits to enter into, right? He says you can't enter into his rest carrying on the way that you did when you was in the world. You have to change. And now if you don't want to change, the Most High weeds you out, right? So in this sense, these men were now about to be weeded out, right, by the Most High. So I'm going to jump down to verse 19 to kind of save some time. It says, and Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the tabernacle, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell upon their faces and said, O power of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? So Moses and them is saying, look, this man Korah, and then that other guy over there, and that, like, does everybody need to die because of what these guys did? Right? So now they're trying to have compassion on the rest of the congregation. Verse 23, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the congregation, saying, get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah and Dathan and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they got up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of their tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children too. And Moses said, hereby ye shall know that Yahweh hath sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own mind. If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord have not sent me. Right? Meaning, if y'all just here and y'all don't get judged for what you just did, right, to check the Most High's elect in that manner, then and y'all die a normal death, then I'm a liar. The Most High didn't send me, is what Moses is saying. Verse 30. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth and swallow them up with all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked Yahweh. And it came to pass, as he had made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all them, and all the men that appertain unto Korah, and all their goods, they and all that appertain to them. So whoever was aligned to them all went down when the earth opened up, went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. And all Israel that were round about them fled at the cry of them, for they said, lest the earth swallow us up also. So fear went amongst the camp. And when everybody saw that, they said, you know what? I need to get out of here, right? So Korah and those people that was with them suffered this fate because they challenged Moses, his position, right? They wanted to now replace Moses or be like Moses when the Most High chose Moses because of his heart, right? Jump to Numbers chapter 26. Because we're reading about these Korahites that come from Korah. So Numbers 26 and verse 9. So now we're reading here when it pertains to the sum of the people. It says, verse 9, and the sons of Eliab, Nemuel and Dathan and Abiram. Is that Dathan and Abiram which were famous in the congregation, who strove against Moses and against Aaron in the company of Korah, when they strove against the Lord. So when they went against Moses, they was not really going against Moses. They was going against the Most High, because the Most High is the one who set certain things in order, right? And when you challenge the order, you're really challenging the Most High and not man. Verse 10, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah. When that company died, what time the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. So when you read later on, early up, right, the Most High also devoured certain men by fire that bucked up against his authority, right? Bucked up against the order that he set up. But it says in verse 11, notwithstanding, the children of Korah died not. So all of the lineage of Korah didn't all die off. Some remain, right? But that thing, that event had a long-standing precedence with the children of Israel for a while. And it became a point of reference that people remembered, because the Lord made that become a sign between Israel and them. I mean, Israel and him. The reference to breach. When you do a breach or you buck up against the Lord, these are some of the things that may transpire, right? One more, go to chapter 27 and verse 1. It says, then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these are the names of his daughters, Mahlah, Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest and before the princes and all the congregation by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, but died in his own sin and had no son. So this is going to be a point of the matter to deal with. How should the inheritance transfer to a man's family when he has no sons? But these daughters was in reference to when their father died around the same time as Korah and the rest of those men that had made, you know, an accusation against Moses, but really against the Lord. So again, this is now dealing with the Korahites, right? Now let's go back to 1 Chronicles chapter 26, chapter 26 a lot. Say again? I didn't. You could read that. Make sure you speak a little loud so everybody can hear. So we're going to the book of Jude in the New Testament, right before the book of Revelations.
Jude, verse 11. Woe unto them! They have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam, who warred and perished in the gainsaying of Korah.
Right. So here, when it pertains to during the times in the New Testament, that spirit that Korah had on him and the men that were with him carried on to even that period of time. And it said, woe unto them, meaning, the Lord's going to have judgment on them. Remember, in the reincarnation or regeneration of spirits, the spirits from the past come back in the present, right? You don't know them as Korah. You don't know them as their names, but that spirit comes back, and that spirit can either just be those individuals who are now here in these last days with new names, or just the spirit itself that Korah and those men had on them can also jump or be on another individual. Right? So that was Jude verse 11. So now we're going back to 1 Chronicles 26:1, where it says, concerning the division of the porters of the Korhites was Meshlemiah, the son of Kor, and of the sons of Asaph. And the sons of Meshlemiah were Zechariah, the firstborn, Jediael, the second, Zabadiah, the third, and Jathniel, the fourth, Elam, the fifth, Johanan, the sixth, and Elionan, the seventh, right? So sometimes when we read some of these names and we see, the names resemble, other names from like the other nation, remember, these names are just, they're names that carry a message or a purpose, right? Like Mashah, drawn from the water. So somebody else can probably have the same name, like Yahushua name or Joshua are both carrying the same meaning, but just pronounced differently, right? So when we see them, sometimes people get confused and says, oh, it says Elam here. So I didn't know that Elam's a part of the nation of Israel. Wow, that's what it, no. It's just that the names sometimes repeat because people took or had the same names, the meaning behind the names for different men or also on another nation, right? Knowing that our origin and lineage all is really Hebrew, right? So verse 4 says, moreover, the sons of Obed, right? So we read we're reading about all these porters or gatekeepers, right? Go to Psalms real quick. Psalms 84. Before I continue on, Psalms 84. Psalms 84 and 10. So it says, for a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my power than to dwell in the tents of wickedness, right? So you'd rather be someone who's dwelling in the courts, a righteous court, the courts of the Most High, because we know all righteous should dwell there, or be a gatekeeper, right, or a doorkeeper in the house of the Most High, than to dwell in the manner that we dwell in it now, right? Because these are all tents of wickedness, right? When we start really examining how certain things transpire, what goes on in our building and here and that store, there's a lot of wickedness that happens. So you'd rather be in a space where it's just, of the utmost positivity and righteousness that you can feel good about yourself when you walk in, right? You want to be in a space or a place where it's comfortable. Everyone is to be on the same wavelength and vibration. manifesting the Most High's righteousness in his will, right? So that's what that's really getting into, but it's letting you know that, that was a position to have, on a righteous position, to be a porter in the court or the palace or the house of the Most High, right? It's not to say that that is an insignificant position. It is a very important position. So now we go back to 1 Chronicles 26, and we read in verse 4 now. It says, moreover, the sons of Obed-Edom were Shemaiah the firstborn, Jehozabad the second, Joah the third, and Sakar the fourth, and Nathaniel the fifth, right? So now here it is, it's getting into the sons of Obed-Edom, right? And Obed-Edom, he also had, if this is the same Obed-Edom, on a famous storyline during the time of King David. And you go to 2 Samuel's. 2 Samuel's chapter 6. 2 Samuel's chapter 6. I'm going to read from verse 4. Exactly, verse 3. The 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 3. And I'm going to read down, I think, to 12, maybe. It says, and they set the ark of power upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which that was at Gilba. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drave the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was at Gibeah, accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord in all the manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and psalteries, and on timbrels, and on cornets, and on cymbals. So as the Ark of the Covenant is being transported from one location, now it's supposed to be going into the city of David. There's a lot of song and dance and thing that's going on with the ark. It says, now when they came to Nikon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of Yahweh and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and Yahweh smote him there for his error. And there he died by the ark of Yahweh. Why? Because no one was supposed to touch the ark or handle the ark except for a specific family that came out of Aaron. And as you read it, it says that, the ark shook as the oxen was probably on their travels, and now it shook, and he went to go and touch it, right? And to the naked reader, you would think that, the Most High is just too harsh, right? The Most High was too, why would he kill a man because he was trying to prevent the ark from dying? Well, what we don't always see, that the Most High sees, and it may not always be clear in scripture, the Most High looks at the heart of men. We read that last week when the Most High sent Samuel to go and get a king, right? The Most High will see the spirit, and that man Uzzah probably had a over righteous spirit to want to go and do that. Which he did was touch his hand onto the ark. He probably had a curiosity that preceded him, and then he wanted to go and do that. Well, he probably didn't need to do it because the Most High has certain men that walk with the ark themselves. That's their role. That if any of those things happen, he came and did that. Verse 8. And David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah, and he called the name of that place, or of the place, Perez Uzzah, to this day, or the breach of Uzzah, right? Meaning he broke the law by touching on that ark. And David was afraid of Yahweh that day and said, come, shall the ark of the Lord come to me? So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David. But David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord continued in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. And it was told King David, saying, the Lord hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that pertaineth unto him, because the ark of Yahweh So David went and brought up the ark of Yahweh from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness, right? So the Most High felt that, this was a very renowned, esteemed, righteous individual. If they had brought that ark in there, his family would have been most likely jacked up and just been like Uzzah. The Lord would have started dealing with them. Probably start doing with plagues, and they would have got the sign, and they would have moved that ark up out of there. So it's a good sometimes to go into some of these names and individuals. So I'm just jumping to some of them to show you, when they had these men to take these positions and roles, there was some that had righteous storylines as to why they were put in that position, right? Cutting the water warrior. So reading on back in 1 Chronicles chapter 26, we at verse 5 now. It says, Amiel the 6th, Issachar the 7th, Pulthai the 8th, for Yahweh blessed him. Also unto Shemaiah his son were his sons born that ruled throughout the house of their father, for they were mighty men of valor. The sons of Shemaiah, Othni and Raphael and Obed, Elzabad, whose brethren were strong men, Elihu and Samachiah. All these are the sons of Obed-Edom, they and their sons and their brethren, able men for the strength for the service, with 62 of Obed-Edom. Right? So when it says able men, right, you'll read sometimes in other scriptures, like it talks about in Leviticus 16th chapter, when we're doing like the Day of Atonement, and there's a ceremony that pertains to the scapegoat, and you're supposed to go find a fit man, right? It's not just a fit man he's working out in the gym. It's a person who has wisdom on how to handle that situation, right? Able or fit individuals, right? That were properly aligned for the strength of the service, right? To do that duty, right? You can't have somebody do the duty and half doing it, right? You want someone who's going to be mentally fit in their minds to carry out that duty. And Obed-Edom, based on what we just read previously in 2 Samuel's, the Most High blessed him, right? And of some of his sons, those were chosen to now fulfill this duty here that we're reading pertaining to some of these porters. All right, let's read on. It says in verse 9, and Meshelemiah had sons and brethren, strong men, 18. Also, Hosea of the children of Merari had sons, Simri the chief, for though he was not the firstborn, yet his father made him the chief, right? So this is an exception. And there's a couple times when you read throughout the storylines in the Bible where there have been exceptions done as far as for who now, as the firstborn, who may not now fulfill that duty, the Most High will have himself intervene, or he'll have the Spirit put on certain men to now usurp that authority, where another son will now take over the reins as the firstborn, even though he wasn't. Because there's certain duties that is supposed to be for that. You'll see that in you'll see that sometimes in different movies or TV shows where someone is running a business and they may have sons, and the firstborn son, he's a nutcase, and the father doesn't want to leave the business to the firstborn son, but the firstborn son, he's pumped up because he knows that he's supposed to get it. And the father has to make a decision to now bypass the firstborn son and go to the second or the third, whoever now he feels is deemed worthy to fulfill that duty, right? That normally doesn't happen when you read the scriptures, but it does happen at times, and sometimes even when the Most High, like when you did with Joseph and his two sons, right? The Spirit was put on them to now the Lord choose between Ephraim and Manasseh. Right? Manasseh was the firstborn, Ephraim was the second. But the Spirit had it where the Most High, through Joseph, through Jacob, I should say, would put the blessing on Ephraim to now receive that firstborn blessing that came from Joseph. And then as you read later on in the storyline, Ephraim was like the head tribe of the northern kingdom, right? He took that role, he took that leadership role, right? But as we read this here, this happens a few times throughout the scripture. So I'm gonna read that again. Verse 10. Also, Hosea, the children of Merari, had sons, Simri the chief. For though he was not the firstborn, yet his father made him the chief, right? So you see that word again, chief or prince or ruler, right? Sometimes they're all synonymous with one another, right? They're all synonymous with one another as it pertains to the role that they're going to play or the duty that they now have to take on.
Kind of, you see a lot of those stories when we talk about Game of Thrones, the little primogeniture. You say, I'm the fourth in line to the throne, and my brother, older brother, is this. And how people will jockey for power, either, you're doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, try to get the preeminence. But Proverbs 17:1, which we're talking about. Go with verse 10.
Right.
This is I think it's like with a Russian movie called like Eastern Promises that came out some years ago. You had that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Where the eldest son was like a fool, came to the mob. Then he had a servant that was like not related to the family, but he was on point. And so the father preferred him over his son. This is Proverbs 17:2. I said one selected. Proverbs 17:2, it reads, a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame, and shall have part of the inheritance among the brethren.
Okay. So, you stay the course as far as for walking in wisdom. Most High will reward you in different forms and fashions. Right? In this case, it's dealing with those who are now supposed to take the role as the second in command to the father, even though they were not firstborn. Right? Most High will have you elevated, or just in the world. The Most High will exalt you in front of others based on your spirit and your righteous dealings with others. So always continue to walk in that spirit. So that was again Proverbs 17:2. So now going back, we have 1 Chronicles 26:11, and it says Hilkiah the second, Tabaliah the third, Zechariah the fourth, all the sons and brethren of Hosea were 13. Among these were the divisions of the porters, even among the chief men, having wards one against another, to minister in the house of the Lord, right? So when it's talking about ministering in the house of the Lord, it's not like, they had the Bible in hand or they had the law in hand and they're ministering, right? Ministering is when you perform your service, your duty. You're now making sure that certain people have understanding of where they can and can't go, certain things that need to be done. They are now orchestrating how things operate. Right? Ministry doesn't always have to do with like the ministry, like how we see it in the traditional sense, but it also deals with and how you conduct the Most High's business within the holy place, within the courts, within the sanctuary. All of these men have specific tasks and jobs, or within the city, in order to make sure that the nation operated righteously, right? So you had to be an able or fit person to now have this role. So now verse 13, it says, and they cast lots as well, the small as the great, according to the house of their fathers, for every gate. So now, as they're the porters, now who stood at certain gates or who was in certain wards, they had to cast lots, right? So it's just like how we see today when we talk about the rolling of the dice or the drawing of sticks, who's got the long stick or the short stick. That's a form of casting lot, right? You could kind of make up your own form of a casting of a lot, but whatever that lot falls on, that's where the decision is going to be now made to grant that person that duty to do this, right? Go to Proverbs chapter 16. And this is why they did the lots, when they could not come up with their own clear-cut decision. So Proverbs 16. And 33. So it says, the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of Yahweh, right? So you can flip the coin, you can draw the string, you can do all these things, right? But the disposing, meaning what it lands on, the Most High can now come and intervene because he wants to be on said individual or said person. So that's why they did that, because they wanted the Most High to come and intervene and make that decision for them, so they can say, well, I didn't choose it. Hey, we prayed on it, and whatever it landed on, we got to leave that up to the Most High. So that's how they were all in alignment. In the world, you see that happens sometimes, where it's just like, to get it off of a person's conscience or point the finger or the blame, you go to that where it's somewhat neutral. It's not someone's own desires to have something such to this or taking it away from them, because now you may say that might be a respect the person type thing, right? I wanted him there. Like, why you have to get it? Why I can't get that? Well, because that's what I chose for you, brother. I see how this is going. And so you do lots. All right. So back in First Chronicles chapter 26. We have verse 14. It says, and a lot eastward fell to Shelemiah. Then for Zechariah, his son, a wise counselor, they cast lots. And his lot came out northward, to Obed-Edom southward, and to his sons of the house of Asuppim. To Shuppim and Hosa, the lot came forth westward, with the gate of Shalaketh, by the causeway of the going up ward against ward. Eastward were 6 Levites, northward 4 a day, southward 4 a day, and toward Asuppim 2 and 2. At Patbar westward 4 at the causeway and 2 at Parba. So it's even giving you the detail of not only where they was now granted the lot to now work or operate as porters or gatekeepers at the gate. It even gives you a little bit more description of where and how many had to now be on that post. How many now had the provision of manning those areas. Verse 19. These are the divisions of the porters among the sons of Kor and among the sons of Merari. Verse 20. And of the Levites, Ahijah was over the treasures of the house of Yahweh and over the treasuries of the dedicated things, right? So the Levites that came from that time period, Ahijah was over them. So that's another individual that you have to now select, that that has no bad reputation, because he's going to be over the treasury. You wouldn't select a brother like Judas Iscariot to be over the treasury, right? Because when you read the storyline, he was about money, right? That was his thing, right? He was one who was very, sideways with money and how it should be handled. So you put that brother or a person like that over the treasury, over the spoils that came from war that was dedicated to the Most High, he'd be like another, what's the brother's name? Achiah in the book of Joshua, who took up the accursed thing, right? When they said anything that's dedicated to the Most High, Achan, Achan, Kun, right? He was sought out and judged by the Most High. Him and his whole family got taken out. Stoned, I think they were stoned and even burned, right? Because they took up the accursed thing. So the person that's going to be over the treasures of the Most High, the dedicated things, that man had to be, they had to probably taken a lot for him or what have you, or maybe he was just known by reputation. right? Verse 21, as concerning the sons of Laadan, the sons of Gershonite Laadan, chief fathers even of Laadan the Gershonite were Jehalelel, right? So Jehalelel was the one now who's going to fulfill this duty pertaining to the treasures. The sons of Jehalelel, Zetham and Joel his brother, which were over the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the Amramites, and the Isharites, and the Hebronites, and the Ezelielites. Right? Man, we get into these families, right? It's interesting because when we start talking about lineages, and you go way back with Abraham, Isaac, and like even just like Adam, Noah, all the way to Abraham, you had certain men that had sons, but not every son became like a great people, right? Or a tribe, right? They just they had a small family and they were not a part of the royal lineage. So when you start looking at this, when it starts now naming them Azarites and Elielites, these are men who had sons and they became like their own clan, right? It says in verse 24, and Shebuel, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses, was ruler over the treasures, right? So he was now a prominent person, Gershom, right? Where you read about when we was in Egypt, his son was the ruler over the treasures. Verse 25, and his brethren by Eleazar, Rabiah his son, and Jeshiah his son, and Joram his son, and Zikri his son, and Shelemith his son. It's easier to probably read it in Hebrew than it is in English. Verse 26, which Shalomith and his brethren were over all the treasures of the dedicated things which David the king and the chief fathers, the captains over thousands and hundreds, and captains of the host had dedicated. Out of the spoils won in battles did they dedicate to maintain the house of the Lord, right? So they would take these things and sometimes they probably would melt them down and then now make other different things for the office, the purpose of the Most High in the sanctuary. Right. So if it was like, certain relics and things that these heathen nations had that were made out of silver and gold and certain things, they took them and then burned them, melted them down, and then refashioned it for other things. But it was specifically for the house of the Most High. Verse 28, and all that Samuel the seer, Saul the son of Kish, and Abner the son of Ner, and Joab the son of Zariah had dedicated, and whosoever had dedicated anything, it was under the hand of Shelomith and his brethren, right? So of the dedicated things, this brother Shelomith was the one who had the duty of maintaining it, right? So what we see here in the Chronicles as it pertains to these offices with the musicians, the porters, all of these things that set up what we read before up until now, these are all men, right? King David set order with men that now had the position of taking care of all of these duties, right? For him to be treasurer, did he have the ability or authority to now go get other men to do certain things for him? Yes. But he was the one that was put in a position to handle that, right? So as we're reading this, you got to take that into mind as to like what the Lord tells you in Proverbs 10. What's it? Why did I just forget? Proverbs 8:4. Unto you, O men, I call. So the men come at the calling of the Lord, make your calling sure, and then certain men are going to have certain positions. Right? Certain men are going to have certain skill sets and they're going to be put over certain administrations. So that's what all this is. All this, you're not going to see a sister put in a position over the nation. No. Like it tells you in 1 Corinthians 11:1, there's that hierarchy, the Most High, Christ, man, then women. So as pertains to this, David is setting the precedence by putting all these men here to stay in line with the Lord. All right, so reading on, we have verse 29 now. It says, of the Isharites, Kenaniah and his sons were for the outward business over Israel, for officers and judges, right? So now it's like having a foreign ambassador. Like this guy, he was supposed to go out to the other different people, the surrounding nations or what have you, and then take care of the business, right? So when we now needed to get wood for the building of certain buildings, and certain Hamites had, they had the better trees in certain areas. Okay, we need to barter. So we're going to send this guy out to handle the business or affairs. Sometimes you'll read that David went and had this, but David had men under him that went and handled that, right? He had a whole administration. That's what we're reading about right now. So again, this man, his office was that he had to handle the business outward, right? Verse 30, and of the Hebronites, Hashabiah and his brethren, men of valor, 1,700, were officers among them of Israel on this side Jordan, westward, in all the business of the Lord and in the service of the king. Just like I mentioned, right? So all of this was dictated on how it's supposed to operate from King David. And we look at how many people we're talking about, right? It says men of valor, 1,700. So 1,700 of these men were spread out to go handle all these affairs. 1,700, right? All had the same thing in mind to go handle his business. And they had one, Kenaniah, who out of his line, his sons were the ones who ran the business. Verse 31. Among the Hebronites was Jerijah, the chief, even among the Hebronites, according to the generations of his fathers. In the 40th year of the reign of David, they were sought for, and they were found among them mighty men of valor at Jazer of Gilead, right? So the 40th year, they said, we got to go find certain men that's going to now fulfill this duty, and they went and found Jerijah from the Hebronites, right? It says in 32, and his brethren, men of valor, were 2,700 chief fathers, whom King David made rulers over the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, for every matter pertaining to Yahweh and affairs of the king, right? So now you had certain men who was over the tribes, right? A certain portion of the tribes to handle all the affairs, right? Civil affairs, right? Moral or civil, they handled that. This guy's talking about that's his land. Look, my landmark goes here. He's trying to change the landmark and say that that's his property. You got men there to go handle that affair, right? On that side of the land of Israel. So all of this is, again, you got to take the wisdom that comes from it. You read about it a little bit in I think it's Corinthians, the 12th chapter, about the different administrations. Certain people have certain gifts, right? Certain people have certain gifts. And those who have those gifts, you have to expose it. Let that person, manifest the gift that the Most High has given them so that they can now make more with it, abound in it for the betterment of the nation. Be quiet.
That's why even in today's time, we have to make sure we fight to maintain to the best of our ability these principles unto you and our call. Because in today's dealing, because of pressure of society, of inclusion of sisters, now you feel pressure, right, to include, women in the affairs of what we see here is most times was men, not because sisters cannot do it, but that's the way the Most High set it up. Right, so we have to be very mindful and not succumb to pressure of even in our own house that we're being labeled as sexist. But that's not what it is. We're just following principles. So we have to be very mindful of that.
Right. that's the spirit that came or that has come in these last days with the nation that's ruling. And because of that, the Most High has used it as a judgment to befall us, right? This is in Jeremiah chapter 31. Jeremiah 31. And 22. Jeremiah 31:22. It says, "How long wilt thou go, O thou backsliding daughter?" Speaking about Israel, the backsliding daughter is a nation of Israel. "For the Lord hath created a new thing in the earth, a woman shall compass a man." Right? So that would be the judgment. When we now backslide from the Most High, when we go away from his principles, the judgment now is, okay, I'm going to give you over to your own ruin. This is what you want. I'm going to now cause this to happen where the women now compass a man, right? They're now taking leadership roles over men in society. Today, someone will look at it and say, well, sir, women went to college and they got degrees and masters and this, that, and the third, and so forth and so on, right? Now, if they line this to the principles in the scriptures, which most women, majority of them do not, then it could still work out until Yahushua comes back and sets things in order. But the society is now run, or there's an influence starting from feminism all the way up to now, where you wouldn't see what we read in the First Chronicles, the past several chapters, and right now happen, right? Because that's quote unquote what? Sexist. It's a sexist thing, right? You guys have no inclusion of women, right? So now the Lord has made it where, because of sin and the lack of the law, go to Isaiah chapter 3. Isaiah chapter 3. And verse, start at 11. Isaiah 3:11, it says, "Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy paths." Right? So that's what happened, right? You now have it where we're being governed by women in certain situations, or the spirit of it, right? It may not even have to be just like physically someone over. It's a feminist type spirit. So again, trying to come back to following these principles and seeing how the Lord inspired David to now have these provisions in all things. We're talking about, hey, we got to have singers, right? David set up singers, and the men was over the singing. Today, if you go into a church, man, that's women's business. Let the sisters run that. No, no, that's not how it was gone. That's not how it was run. But specifically when it pertains to how everything operates with the sanctuary, the praising of the Most High, that has to be driven by men. Right? It says no, sisters can't sing. They can sing, but it's under the authority and auspices of certain men who are chosen, deemed fit or able to hold that duty. All right.
And you can even see in society, it's unlawful to run an organization and not have a percentage of women in it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you might face some backlash in sentence.
Yeah. Inclusion. Right. I don't know. Trump may have a different spin on it with how he ousted DEI and all those other things, right? Because I don't think he's not for inclusion so much. But in general, yeah, that's how things is, where you have to like bipartisan. You got to be inclusive of everybody. They would say the same thing. Was like, oh man, there's no alphabet letters in here. What's up with that? You got to have some alphabet letters in here too, right? And it's like, do I? Yeah, you do, right? People will make a stink or a stir behind that, and then cause your business a fair because they'll they try to classify you as something.
You see it too on the political side, especially when it comes to mayors in major cities. Where over like the 70s and 80s, you would see like a lot more so-called Black and Hispanic men they will put as mayor of the city, or they campaign for get elected, kind of showcasing what's good. Now you see a lot of sisters now being brought in, whether it be a Northern Tribe or Southern Kingdom. And a trick you saw do on the political side and the corporate side is whenever they're planning for some sort of disaster, we love to have one of our people in the top position so they catch all the flack. You saw with the mayor they had over Chicago. You saw it happen with the mayor over there in LA when the fires broke out. Right. So they'll say, oh, look, so-and-so was in charge. You see, like, the information will come up about the chief of police will like do things, to go against their orders. You see, like, discord there. Even like men might be under that mayor. They're just like, I'm not taking it serious. You saw them do it with the Israelite men too. So you already know when it comes to women being those positions of power, they're gonna show that discontent.
Right. All right, so we're jumping now into First Chronicles chapter 27. All right, First Chronicles chapter 27, verse 1. It says, now the children of Yasha'Allah, or Israel, after their number, to wit, the chief fathers and captains of thousands and hundreds, and their officers that served the king in any matter of the courses which came in and went out month by month throughout all the months of the year, of every course were 24,000. Right. So now you're seeing how David had certain groups of men that had the authority over each month. Right. Each month you had a rotation of men that handled all the provisions for that month. Then the second month came in, all those men were moved out, and then you had another group of men that would come in and take over that, right? And he would break that down in rankings to handle all the decision making and the affairs of the people. Go to Deuteronomy 1:15, right? This was an advice that Moses received from his father-in-law on how you make order. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 1. Let's see when I want to start from. I'm going to start at 10. Deuteronomy 1:10, it says, the Lord your power hath multiplied you, and behold, ye are this day as the stars of heaven for multitude. For Yahweh power of your fathers make you 1,000 times so many more as ye are, and bless you as he hath promised you. How can I myself alone bear your cumbrance and your burden and your strife? Take you wise men and understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. And he answered me and said, this thing which thou hast spoken is good for us to do. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, and captains over 10s, and officers among your tribes. And I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother, and the stranger that is with him. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is Yahweh's. And the cause that is too hard for you, bring it unto me, and I will hear it. Right? So this goes into how in the beginning, when we came out of Egypt in the wilderness, Moses in the beginning began to take all the matters upon himself, and having this discussion of this talk with his father-in-law, he was advised that go and choose renowned or known men from amongst the people, and then make them captains or rulers over thousands, captains or rulers over hundreds, captains or rulers over 50s. And then it mentions officers, right? These officers are now going to follow in the example of the captains. They're being groomed, right? And then they now advance or get promoted to a captain. So that's order. And now that order is now being given based on how that person has been able to, based on reputation that they have seen amongst the nation, how that person is now able to now hold that duty for that. So when we're reading this in First Chronicles chapter 27, David now also had certain men that was going to be captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, 50, so forth and so on, and then officers, and they were supposed to hold certain duties in each month, right? It said 24,000 to the course. So now going to verse 2 back in First Chronicles 27 and 2, it says, over the first course of the first month was Joshabim, the son of Zabdiel, and in his course were 24,000. So that's brother Jashabim. He had 24,000 men that he now had to delegate what to do within the course of the month, right? That was his charge, right? Imagine standing there and holding court. You got to have maybe a meeting on this day, a meeting with this group, a meeting with that group, to have everybody go out and do their duties. Verse 3, and the children of Perez was the chief of all the captains of the host for the first month, right? So Joshabim was the chief. He was the head, and then he appointed Perez as the chief of all the captains of all the different men. So remember, there's thousands, there's hundreds, there's 50s, and there's officers. That's all in there. So now these men are all heads over the group of people that they have underneath them. And then you got Perez, and then you got Joshabim. So there's a whole hierarchy every month. Verse 4, and over the course of the second month was Dodai and Ohio. So like Ohio. Ahohite. How you say? Hohite. A Hohite, and of his course was Mikloth, also the ruler. And his course likewise were 24,000. So again, Dodai was the one who had presided over the whole month, and then Mikloth was set up as the ruler. Verse 5, the third captain of the host for the third month was Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, a chief priest, and in his course were 24,000. This is that Benaniah who was a mighty man among the 30 and above the 30, and in his course was Amzabad, his son, right? So Benaniah, right? Nabiah's over here. You know, he giving props to Benaniah because, like you said, Benaniah was that dude. It said that he was above the 30 because actually, let's go to 2 Samuel. Read about this man Benaniah. 2 Samuel 23, I think. Second Samuel chapter 23. And verse 20. So it says, and Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab, right? So we know Moab today is called Chinese nation. And within that nation, you do know, you can't be ignorant in the thinking that the Most High doesn't allow or raise up some mighty men within all nations, right? They have valiant warriors and men of all nations. And in this case, Benaniah went against two lion-like men of Moab. When I first read this years ago, and you start thinking of lion-like men of Moab, you know, when I was growing up as a kid, it's not a thing today, but when I was growing up as a kid, karate flicks was the thing, right? It was, you know, we used to watch a lot of kung fu karate movies. And when you seen some of these men, they carried, like, you know, before Marvel and DC was what they are today, they had certain men that had skill sets that preceded life, right? One of my favorite movies was Five Deadly Venoms in karate flick, and these men had attributes of different animals: the toad, the snake, right? You know, Iron, the guy had like iron legs, like they had all these things, and we used to try to go out and imitate them. And the kid with the golden arms, like we would imitate these characters that we see in the movies, in these Chinese movies. But here it says that these were lion-like men, meaning like when you see a lion and you know how ferocious a lion is, these men were like that. Benaniah was on another level. He took these guys out. These two men probably had, you know, the reputation like Goliath. When Goliath was doing his thing against David, Goliath, everybody was in fear of Goliath. They probably was in fear of these two lion-like men from Moab. Not Benaniah, he took them out, right? It says he went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in the time of snow, right? So imagine that, where he went and slew a lion in a pit in the winter, right? In the time of snow was the winter time. So he had a reputation amongst those who are also warriors, right? Because he speaks about the 30. There was like David had many other men who were like, you know, top men, but there was a group, the 30 they were like the mercenary, like above mercenaries. They were the ones, right? And Benaniah was lifted up. Verse 21. And he slew an Egyptian, a goodly man, and the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but went down to him with a staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear. Check that out, right? So he just went down with the staff, but this Egyptian, reputable, he came down with a spear, and in fighting, Benaniah was able to take the spear from him and kill him with his own spear. And it's mentioned, so this man, this Egyptian man, had to be reputable, right? Verse 22. These things did Benaniah the son of Jehoiada, and had the name Jehoiada, and had the name among three mighty men, right? So he had a reputable name just outside the 30, but he was one of those three. Verse 23. He was more honorable than the 30, but he attained not to the first three. And David set him over his guard, right? So it says that he was more honorable than the 30, but he did not attain until the first three. So you had there were three other gentlemen that was a part of that that group that also had a name that Benaniah did not come on that level, but he still received the same honor, meaning he did not have maybe so many different accolades or certain things, but he was esteemed as being most honorable out of all of them, right? Like those other three, I think, the three, Jehoshabad, Eleazar, Shemath, right? Those are the three that you'll probably read either later on in this chapter or further up. They had some, like they all had some reputable stories. Like, you know, one of them killed 800 at one time, 800 men. One of them defended a whole plane against the heathen by himself. Like he stood guard. Now, for these things to happen, I think you read about in Isaiah the 11th chapter. Go to that real quick. Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11, I want to say it's 2 or 3. Right. Isaiah 11 and 2. It says, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, which is now, when we read this chapter, is going into our Lord and Savior, Yahushua. Rest upon him the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. So one of the spirits that I'm focusing on is said might, right? So that's a spirit that the Most High can put on you, where you now, as a normal man, when you get that spirit on you, strength and ability comes upon you, where you are now able to do more things than the common man, just like Samson, right? Samson had the spirit of might, even though most attributed to his hair, it wasn't his hair. It was a spirit that came from the Most High, because when you read later on towards the ending, right before he dies, he prays to the Most High to put that spirit in him so that he can take out his enemies and destroy them, right? So it wasn't the hair, because they had already shaved his head. That spirit comes from the Lord. So when we're reading about Benaniah and these other men, right, that were able to go and do these things, the spirit of might has been blessed upon them by the Most High to now go and do that. Right? So you got to have that favor for the Lord, and he will put and impart upon you certain gifts, certain spirits. We see counsel, right? We see knowledge. We see tongues, right? There's a lot of different spirits the Most High can put upon you. One is might, right? And these men were gifted with having a spirit upon them to go and execute certain things. All right, so let's go back. 1 Chronicles 27. We at verse 7 now.
What you were saying earlier, Psalm 87. It's only 7 verses, but it covers what we're talking about as far as how those smile make mention of how talking about Egypt and this nation, this man was born there. That's saying how he's going to set Israel even above that as a entire people.
Okay.
Namely, verses 4 and 5.
Okay.
I'll start with 4. Psalms 87 in verse 4. Psalms 87 and 4. I will make mention of Rahab in Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre are tired with Ethiopia. This man was born there. And of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born in her, and the highest himself shall establish her. Yahweh shall count when he written up the people, that this man was born there.
Right. So there's certain times where the Lord is going to, even in scripture, make mention of certain people that come from out of other nations, like Goliath, right? Goliath was a man esteemed, a great warrior amongst the Hamites, right? But you have others that come out of plural. When it says this and that man, meaning there's multiple great righteous men that come from out of our nation, that comes from out of Zion, right? So you'll have that. That's like what we meant, you know, it mentions these other individuals here. It doesn't give their names, but it lets you know that, yeah, these guys was lying like men. Now, somewhere in the weeds, somebody goes into, you know, some ancient Moabite history, and they might mention Benaniah. It's like, yeah, these two great men got killed by one of the Jews, or one of those Hebrews, right? You know, and they may go into a storyline about them, but that they just died at the hand of a man that was, you know, Hebrew. Like, oh, that's the same thing here, right? So sometimes it cross references. And speaking about that, because sometimes you know, you hear about plagiarism in the Bible, and you know, oh, they got that story in their book too, so it's a copycat. No, when you understand the genealogies going back to Adam, and how there was families and people that were around that carried on the story, that lets us know about past events, right? So yeah, from the sons of Ham, they probably had history pertaining to the great flood. The sons of Japheth, they also have history pertaining to that storyline. We're not the only ones that got passed on. So when people start going into these other books or going into these other storylines, and they see the same thing, They were like, ah, man, see, all that is, yeah, man, I just plagiarism. You got to put things in its proper context. Yes, these men have that. Just like if some major event happened today, right? A lot of different nations are aware of it, or it's going to get passed down to their children, or it's going to be put in books or reference materials. And they're going to now be able to point back to it and then carry it along in their own storyline. So it's not to say that the Most High, his word is a plagiarism. No, he gives us a complete narrative that's relevant for us to now maintain and overcome in these last days. So don't get tricked up when people mention that. Oh, in the book of this, you know, in the Gilead, it talks about that. All that is no, right? Oh, in the 42 laws, it talks about that in my also. So that's just a plagiarism. No, right? Again, certain things have been passed down to certain sons or families, or they're around to observe certain events, and they recorded them, right? They recorded them too, but doesn't mean that this is a plagiarism. It's just that something that was, because they don't have the completeness of what you see here in the scriptures. All right, let's go back to First Chronicles 27, and we at verse 7 now. Verse 7, for the fourth captain for the 4th month was Asahel, the brother of Joab, and Zebadiah, his son, after him. And in his course were 20 and 4,000. The 5th captain for the 5th month was Shamhuth of Israelite, and in his course were 20 and 4,000. The 6th captain for the 6th moon was Ira, the son of Ishkash, the Tekoite, and in his course were 20 and 4,000. I purposely said moon there because we had just went into this during the class this evening about that the word month comes from the moon, right? So the 6th moon is the 6th month. The 5th moon is the 5th month. And 24,000 men had to charge over a certain elder at that time. And they were given a chief to now preside over all the affairs, right? So it kind of aligns to what we was reading a little bit this evening in the class. Quiet.
And it emphasized the scriptures in Exodus 15 and 3 that the Lord is a man of war.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows that while the Most High is a spirit, and those that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Right? Physically, that's how he shows that he's a man of war through the men that he set up that we reading here. That's how he exemplifies how powerful he is when it comes to wage war for his people and establishing his kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what Yahushua will do when he comes back, warring to establish the kingdom.
Where I leave off? Verse 7. Verse 7 says, the 7th captain for the 7th month was Helaz, the Pelonite of the children of Ephraim, and in his course were 20 and 4,000. The 8th captain for the 8th month was Sibekiah, the Hushathite of the Zarhites, and in his course were 20 and 4,000. The 9th captain for the 9th month was Ebiezer, the Anatothite of the Benjamites, and his course were 20 and 4,000. The 10th captain for the 10th month was Maharai, the Netophathite of the Zarhites, and his course were 20 and 4,000. The 11th captain for the 11th month was Benaniah, the Pirathonite of the children of Ephraim, and his course were 20 and 4,000, right? So we see that sometimes, you know, most of them that's not mentioned, you can probably attribute them being Levites, but then you now get Benjamites that now is also chosen at certain months to rule over the month as it pertains to all the affairs that have to now pertain to it. And then we also see now here Ephraim. Verse 15, the 12th captain for the 12th month was Heldai, the Nephatothite of Othniel, and in his course were 20 and 4,000. It says, furthermore, over the tribes of Israel, the ruler of the Reubenites was Eleazar, the son of Zikri of the Semonites. The Shephatiah, the Shephatiah, right? Shephatiah, water, the son of Makkah, right? So current. So now we get so now we get bear with me 1 second. Done. So now we get, all the way down to the 12th month, and then you had certain men that was now going to be set up over the tribes, right? So we got through the 12 months, and now we're getting to men that was going to be set up over the tribes. That's what it says. Furthermore, over the tribes of Israel. So you got people that's over the months. Now you got men that's over the tribes, right? It says in verse 17, of the Levites, Hashabiah, the son of Kemuel, of the Aaronites, Zadok, of Judah, Elihu, one of the brethren of David, of Issachar, Omri, the son of Michael, Zebulun, Ishmael, the son of Obadiah, of Naphtali, Jeremoth, the son of Azrael, of the children of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Azazai, of the half tribe of Manasseh, Joel, the son of Pedaiah, of the half tribe of Manasseh in Gilead, Edo, the son of Zechariah, of Benjamin, Jaasiel, the son of Abner, of Dan, Azrael, the son of Jeroham. These were the princes of the tribes of Israel. Again, when it's talking about princes, it's just going into chief men, not a son of a king, but chief men who are now set up to be heads of the people. In this case, heads over each tribe, right? So that was their position. And then they would have people down to assist and help them out when it pertains to certain affairs, but they were the heads. Verse 23, but David took not the number of them from 20 years old and under, because the Lord said he would increase Israel like to the stars of the heavens, right? So it was an interesting discussion when you now observe how the Most High would not number men under 20 years old. Go to Exodus chapter 30. Exodus chapter 30. So Exodus chapter 30 and verse 14. So now when you did number the people, right, there had to be a certain atonement offering that now had to go to the Most High. And if not, it would be almost like a plague or a curse. But it says here, everyone that passeth among them that are numbered from 20 years old and above shall give an offering unto the Lord. The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than a shekel when they give an offering unto the Lord to make an atonement for your souls, right? So now when this was done, when you now counted the people, you had to give an offering, but it was only reckoned from those who was 20 years old and upward. Those who were under were not deemed worthy yet, right? So there's always this discussion of maybe is this where you now deem a person, a man, a male child, as an adult, fit to be an adult, a man, right? That is ready to take on certain responsibilities. Go to Numbers chapter 1. Numbers chapter 1 and verse 1. So Numbers chapter 1 and verse 1, it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, and in the first day of the second month, in the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel after their families by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, even every male by their polls, from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies, right? So now when it even pertains to numbering those who are fit for war, today, I think in Esau's military, you can be 17 or 18 years old and go to war, right? You're deemed fit at that age to now go fight to defend the country. Here in the scriptures, you would have to be 20, right? Your 20th birthday would have to have passed, and then you could now be deemed fit to go to war and be counted among that number or that lot, right? Jump down to verse 18. Actually, we start at 17. It says, and Moses and Aaron took these men which were expressed by their names, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, by their polls. And as you read down, you're going to get that from each tribe, right? And it's important because now when you are handling certain duties, they had to check the records to make sure that you came out of a certain line of family, right? If you was going to now deal with something pertaining to the sanctuary, you had to come out of Levi, out of the sons of Levi, out of the sons of Aaron. And they had to check that. You had to check that you were the age and you came out of a certain tribe and a certain family. So that's why they have that name there by the house of their fathers, according to the names and from their families, because that was important. But it was key that it was 20 years old and upward. So when we now start looking at men being of ripe age to take on certain duties, 20 years old is when you should be numbered to now fulfill certain things. Because we looked at like marriage, like when is a woman ready for marriage? And most people align it to when she passes the age of her flowers, when she has a menstrual cycle, because now she's technically, physically able to have a baby, right? But still, there's some learning and nurturing that still needs to be done by the mother and the family for that child as she gets older in age. So the male had to be 20 years old, and most are likening it the same thing, that it should take some time for the woman to nurture herself, guided by her mother, to be prepared for all that comes with learning your body, right? Learning certain things that now come with the emotions that you learn from your body. And then you'll be able to now embark on going to marriagehood. Now, if we use women if we use men the same way we use women, then that's almost like saying, well, the woman, she's able to have a child once she has a menstrual cycle, 11, 12, right, years old. Starts around 13, some earlier from others and some later. Well, a man is able to start producing sperm also at an early age. So he go out and just start laying with women, just having a family? No, because he's not mentally ready yet. He's not prepared to take on those duties. He's not going out there working and laboring and doing those things. He's not there. He's not fit. So it takes wisdom to understand when the Lord starts putting these things. I'm not even counting you. You're not even in the number yet. You still got some time, young man, right, to go and start getting yourself ready. And in the same time, that woman should also be nurtured up as well. Not to say that women are numbered with the men, because the women are not going out to war. But there's a time of development and things that needs to happen, right? And it shouldn't just be because you got to develop. Pourquoi?
Right, and further on, same line that you were mentioning, when we see the transition, each month you have a rotation of a chief come in and take over. What that does to the member in the army, first it gives them skill development from one chief. and then they rotate the next month, and they can learn versatility, right? Learn to be versatile, and then they can learn to be leadership development, and then redundancy. So what that does, they learn all these things in 12 months, so that the crew now is fully ready. They learn under different men with different skill, and all that benefit the entire army. So it was a very cunning strategy used there, put by the Mossad, so that those men, in the course of 12 months, they learn over those top leadership and all the skills that they can. And what that does in case of one is not there, you maintain continuity in the army with the people that's underneath. So anyone can rise up in that family that the Mossad set up to become a king based on the kid's skill, that they acquired.
Mm-hmm.
That was very
Yeah, so when you think of it, everybody has an opportunity to participate. Right. You got a couple of folks who are the heads and 24,000 people underneath. It doesn't give you the 24,000 name, because right now that's arbitrary, because they're going to take guidance and leadership from these chief men. And it's like, okay, all of you, imagine 24,000 people. It's like more than a football stadium. Right? It's like a football stadium, and more than a football stadium, because every stadium has a variety of numbers. So imagine one man walking into the football stadium, and now he has to go and break all that up. Like, you guys, you 100 over here or 200 over here, you got to go do this. You 400 over here, you got to do this. I need you 8 guys, because you 8 guys have a certain duty to do over here. And then you take so that takes a calculated work to now prepare for. Right? So we just see the numbers and now they got 24,000. No, consider the preparation and the administration that goes into a man and another chief underneath him now setting order and structure for approximately 30 days with these 24,000 people. And then when it's done, probably at the end, right on that last day, the new moon about to come in for the next month. Now there's a transition. It's like, all right, now we transition it out. And who's that? Oh, yeah, how about you give them a salute, and now the next person is coming in to take over.
And you're gonna get another leadership style.
Yes.
And there's no shortage of leadership.
Right.
In that anything having continuation happen.
Because now when you look at each month, somebody might have the first month, right? And then the first month, there's a high holy day in that first month, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So now they're presiding over the whole month. So now they have a specific duty. So when you now look at your lot, you're like, oh, you got the first month, you got the 7th month, I got the 7th month. Man, we got brothers, man, you got to be on your P's and Q's. We got a lot to do this month, right? Somebody in the 4th month, it's still a prestigious position, but it's not like the 1st, the 7th, the 9th. It's not like some of these other months, right? I just got to deal with the regular, day to day, right? Maybe the next time the lot changes, and then I got the 7th month. Who knows, right? But it's still, there's a lot of preparation to detail that has to go into that, right? So you're supposed to learn and consider it, because it's not explicitly mentioned. Like, okay, Benaniah, he had to do this. No, Benaniah is over the month. You got to figure it out. You got to go counsel with certain people on what you need to do. Go ask the questions.
Because it's not just a leader, he brings administration.
Right. Go ahead.
So these were the chiefs that had to make sure that Numbers 28, 29 happens too.
Yep.
That's part of their responsibility.
Yep.
So we're talking about the morning and evening sacrifice. We're talking about the sacrifice of the Sabbath.
Uh-huh.
We're talking about the offerings.
Right.
We're talking about all the offerings for the holy days. And then within those holy days, each day, like a tabernacle, right? The first day, we need to have these oxen, these calves, these lines.
Right.
The second day, we need to have these on.
Right.
These men in charge, these monks, right? We make sure that the Levites had they had the tools already. They had the linen garments, they had the tools, cutting tools. But they needed the animal supplied by these men.
Right. That's why we read in Ezekiel, go back, I think we read this night. Go to Ezekiel 45, I think. That's a good point, right? When you start understanding what some of their roles were, go to back, we read this Ezekiel 45, I believe. Bear with me.
Right. Ezekiel 45, actually. So Ezekiel 46. Select 46 and 2.
Verse 30.
Okay. Is it 30? I didn't get to 30 yet. I was at 20. What did I stop at? I think 23. But this is first Ezekiel 46 and 2. It says, and the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of that gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until evening. So when we read that, the scene was focusing on the importance of the new moon and what the priest had to do as it pertains to the offerings. But the prince, or the chief men of renown, he had a duty to do. He had to go and get the offerings and present it to the priest, right? So the priest is doing their thing, but there's some other folks who have their duties to now work in concert with the priest. So these men that set up over the months, they had to have the foresight to make sure all things is handled according to their normal provisions. The priest, even in the king's palace, what food and provision need to be met for the king, because they're going to want to sit down at the new moon. They're going to want to sit down and hear who's preparing that, who's bringing this, who's singing. You singing? Okay, we're going to. All of this has to be worked,
and let alone that means you have to feed all these people, and then in the new moon, like you mentioned, it's a different preparation.
Right.
So it's a big administration. It's a lot of work.
Right. So when we're doing these new moons, think about those men who came in on the first day and had things running, right? Running smooth.
Right now we just pick up some food on our way.
Yeah, we just say, I made some lentils. I did this over here. Nah, man, these guys had to do a whole lot more. Right? They had to consider. See, we're not big enough right now as far as when we're looking at even these men who was over there, we read before, the porters. These guys is over them because they're controlling the whole month. So now, who the ones that's out this gate? Okay, I see that's what they get. We got to have a conversation with him to make sure that this is handled a certain way. And like all of that, everybody had to be in concert with one another in order to run this smooth. Right? And you had to be a reputable brother.
Right. And you have to do that rotation to make sure that if somebody cannot do it, you always have somebody to step in.
Yep. This brother's unclean. Okay. I got 24,000 people. Hey, if he don't make it, make sure you learn what he's doing. Matter of fact, you shadow him. You be here, right? You need to be a little bit distant. If he start getting, then you come in and rotate. Like you think about the worst case scenarios to have a plan.
Yeah, the administration, the kingdom continues.
Yes, right.
I'm not sure if those who actually always like to reference the spook sat by the door, but they talk about that in there. They say if the leader gets compromised, that second in command rises up and everyone else rises up to position. Right. So it's like a constant factor in real warfare to make sure that the armies will stay robust.
All right, so go back. Yeah, First Chronicles 27. I think I'm at verse 24. It says, Joab, the son of Zeruiah, began to number, but he finished not, because there fell wrath for it against Israel. Pardon me. Neither was the number put in the account of the Chronicles of King David, right? So Joab had the foresight to know that, this thing shouldn't be done. So he left off, numbers or names so that it wouldn't be a harsher plague or punishment. So you read that storyline back in Samuel's. I know we went through that some Sabbath services ago. Verse 25, and over the king's treasures was Asmaveth, the son of Adiel, and over the storehouses in the fields and the cities and in the villages and in the castles was
Johanathan, the son of Uzziah, right? So now you had men that was over the treasuries of the Most High. Now you got men that's over the treasuries of the king, right? And then he would probably also have certain things. So it's talking about his storehouses, his fields, cities, and villages, right? And in the castles. So the king, right? Go to 1 Samuel. This reminds me of 1 Samuel chapter 8. And sometimes Israel complained about this, but it's their own doing. Our own doing. 1 Samuel chapter 8 and verse, start at 10. It says 1 Samuel 8 and 10. It says, and Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that ask of him a king, right? So this is when Israel observed all the other nations having kings that ruled over them, when the Most High was our king that ruled over us. But we wanted to emulate what they did, right? We seen that they had a pomp and circumstance, so we want one like them. So they went and asked Samuel to go and ask the Lord if he could choose out a king for us. Verse 11, and he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground, or harvest his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be his confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. This is a good point here, right? So now we're seeing here that when Samuel was petitioning, or was to petition the Most High for a king, the Lord lets it be known that for the operations of a king, he's going to have all this. He's going to take your sons. So that's like how you see today when certain families and his sons go to war. It's like, yeah, your sons go in the front line, right? Either they drafted him or he chose to go there. But that's the portion of now having a king, where he now goes out and does his bidding, whether wise or foolish. Because sometimes you have a foolish king or foolish ruler that will put you in harm's way when you don't need to be in harm's way, right? So this is going to be the course of the king. But now we've been reading a lot about what David was doing as it pertains to the administration. But here the Most High gives insight that says what? He will take your daughters to be confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. So were women a part of the administration? Yes. Women were there cooking and baking and doing all this other stuff. However, it was under the authority and the guidance of the men that were set up by the king, right? And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards. Say olive garden. Olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. So it wasn't even just for him, right? So he was going to have princes and rulers under him that also needed some nice digs, right? They needed some nice land, nice houses. So he would take that, what do they call it today? Eminent domain. I'm taking it for the purposes of the government or the city. You're like, yo, what you doing? You just can't take my land. Well, you nominated, you wanted him. This is what has to happen. Don't complain now. This is what you wanted. It says, and he will take the 10th of your seed and of your vineyard and give to his officers and to his servants. So all these men that we're reading about here, they were a part of the king's administration. They got some things. They got some nice land and some digs, because that's what we're reading. He's going to take that and give it to them. It's a part of the reward of doing this duty. Right? They're not going to just be in some shack. Right? These chief ministers live in some shack going about taking. The king going to bless them.
And that's the privilege and duty of being the king. You being put in position to rule over all these resources. Eventually, it's the Most High resources.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Israel, they were looking at the other kings that the nation had, but not
a true example of what a king ruling according to the Most High. Because in Proverbs 29:2, it says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. We don't have any problem being a king. A king is over us as long as we're getting our fair share based on, what we do righteously. The Most High properly, portion everybody according to what they deserve. But in a wicked king, regardless of whether you deserve it or not, they just gonna snatch it, like you said. They're just gonna snatch it. They don't care. And even if you cry about it, that's your business. So they were looking at those kings and the Most High said, you don't want a king like the other nation. I am your king. But they're impatient. They want it to be just like the other nation.
Right.
I think about in history, it kind of turned into a cartoon in different movies. People Robin Hood period with the king before, I think Richard the Lionhearted. Because I think in the story, based on actual history, Richard the Lionhearted was supposed to be the good king that was away, and you had his younger brother with power. He was a mess. He had the sheriff of Nottingham going everywhere, like squeeze people, blow their money. That's what Robin Hood. That whole story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what even had Robin Hood get momentum behind him because of the what I said. Wicked being in authority. People mourning. Robin Hood was like an answer to that affliction. People became
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna finish reading this up, verse 17. Actually, verse 16. He will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to his work. And he will take the 10th of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants. And ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen, which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. Right? So when all that happens, you get the king, and you start putting things in motion. You start crying and praying like Most High. You start setting up your prayer. Most High, what's going on? I ain't hearing you. I ain't hearing you. This is what you wanted. I was your king. You didn't want me. You wanted him. So hey, here you go. It's like saying, this is your king. Yeah, this is your king right here. That's what he's going to do.
It's crazy because Samuel knew. Even at that time, he said this is not needed. But the Most High like, no, this has to happen.
Right.
Teach lessons over time.
Right.
Just
it's funny because when you look at the grand scheme of it, because we forward face to Yahushua. And we know that Yahushua was going to be the ultimate king for us on earth. And him now needing to come from a certain line. At this moment, like that was already like preordained how that was going to end up. But when you're living in the moment, you don't know how things is transpiring, right? So even when it was petitioned, Samuel probably felt the way and was like, "Oh man," but this is this gotta go. Let it be. They're gonna have some growing pains with this one, but let it be, right? And then what would happen? You get Saul, and then the crown moves from one tribe to the next tribe, and then it now makes its way in line for Yahushua to come. That was going to come out of that line, right? But if we was there, we wouldn't see how that was going to play itself out, right? Now we fast forward, we like, man, it's kind of.
Oh, we probably was there. We don't remember.
it's funny too. You'll see like the different tribes, Judah, they talking about their own code. They have state own code. That's like in the world. You see with the whole black power. That's their own code. Look up like Neely Fuller and sister. He passed away, and the other one, Dr. Francis Cresswell. Kind of looked at them as like, and Dr. Paul Anderson looked at them as like, pioneers when it comes to black power movement as far as the structure and how to deal with the white supremacy. And it's like knowing the truth, you see like, oh man, they get a step closer to the real code, which is the scriptures. And you can kind of sympathize with Samuel in this regard because he sees like, yo, we have the law, right? We have the structure in place. We even have a people, the Levites, we can go through as a go-between to the Most High. We got this, But like we're talking about now, it's like not had to transpire to teach those lessons over time, over generations. And even Christ himself, when he came, it was like the Most High throwing us an extra bone. Like, look, I'm going to take the code, that's what you needed from the beginning. I'm going to have him come in the form of a person with a certain family line where you just look at him
This is the code that I was trying to tell you all along since the beginning. In a person. Look at him. Everything he says and does, this is it. I gave you my code of conduct in the flesh. We talking about Christ being the word, like he is the code.
Mhm.
So it's like most sides it's like giving us extension after extension after extension, extending his arm to us again and again and again. Like, okay, you still don't get it. Now I've done the greatest. I've actually given you him, and now he's going to be here to lead an example. So look at that. This is what.
God.
And still, we still above our heads.
Yep.
Still don't get it.
All right. Let's go back. First Chronicles 27. We at verse. We at verse 26. It says, and over them that did the work of the field for tillage of the ground was Ezri the son of Chilub. And over the vineyards was Shemaiah the Ramathite. Over the increase of the vineyards for the wine cellars was Zabdi the Shiphamite. Verse 28, and over the olive trees and the sycamore trees that were in the low plains was Baal Hanan the Girdite. And over the cellars of oil was Joash, right? So same thing we just read of all those things that he was going to have. That's what we're reading now. Olives and different fields and all of that. It says in verse 29, and over the herds that fed in Sharon was Shitrai, the Sharonite. And over the herds that were in the valleys was Shaphat, the son of Adiah. So Adlah. Over the camels also was Obil the Ishmaelite. And over the asses was Jediah the, Meronothite. Right? The Meronothite. Meronothite, yeah. And over the flocks were Jaziz, Jay-Z. Over the flocks was Jay-Z. It would have been interesting if it. I'm not going to say. But it's going to say, "Oh, the camels was just." But I mean, this is a joke. This is a joke. This is a joke. This is a joke. Yeah. Verse 31. And over the flocks was Jaziz the Hagarite. All these were the rulers of the substance, which was King David's. So everything up was the substance of what King David had. And he had people that presided over all that for his purpose, right? Like we just read in 1 Samuel chapter 8.
This is the Most High giving you or giving us the how grand the king is. Hence, the whole world is supposed to be under the auspices of the king.
Right.
It's it's giving you, a little bit. It's in this chapter. It's telling you, little by little, all these big things that the king has, just to show you, the big picture of everything that's gonna be under the rulership of Yahweh. Everything is this.
Mm-hmm.
He's already that dude.
So we're at verse 32, almost done. It says, also Jonathan, David's uncle, was a counselor, a wise man and a scribe. And Jehiel, the son of Hakmoni, was with the king's sons. Right? So now you had counselors that was advisors and scribes to be able to now listen and annotate things down of what was being said, heard, and done. Right. Right. So your advisor, like your counselor, is one who, when certain matters and certain things come up and you kind of consider it, they can well, this is what we did 2 years ago, and this is what because they're the scribe, they can go back into the records and kind of go back and see how things progressed, and then just kind of give you wise counsel. They themselves is probably getting information from others to now help them out in their job.
Experience and everything. You're very smart and skilled people.
Exactly. And we remember when you get into the counselors or advisors when the kingdom was split from Solomon, and you get down to Rehoboam, his advisors and counselors, yeah, they advised him wrong, man. And he went and did it. But yeah, you want to have. That's why it's important when they were speaking about able men, wise men, men of strength, right? These were ones who was going to be able to be up for the challenge, right? Who are going to, be very persistent in how they help try to advise the king. Because as the king goes, as we just said, so goes the nation. So you want to make sure you give them, all different avenues. King, if we do this is going to happen. I think we should try that, and this may, be your fate, right?
And at the end, it's still the king's decision,
right?
Just you still got to advise.
Yep. It's funny they're taking advisors, making advisors digital, right? Because now your advisor is AI, right? Because the system can take all the information that's like a scribe. Now they can just go take that, and then you can ask it, what should I do? Right? Should I go do this? Should I go do that? And it's going to give you an answer. Wow.
You compile all the books by previous advisors.
Yeah.
Let AI.
Yep. Let AI do it, or go gather up, all the past information. Now, what most people may not be trusting is because if you want your personal things, you got to upload all your personal things into the system on the internet. So let me upload this. I want to upload my financial statement. Can you help me out with my portfolio? What should I do? Right. So now it becomes like an advisor. They had a whole thing. This is the tangent. They had a whole thing where this guy, he was a married man, he had a child, and ChatGPT became almost like his trusted advisor, because you can get overwhelmed with the accuracy and helping you do things. So he was like, a hands-on person. So it wasn't a hands-on person, but it made him one, where it's like, how we go on YouTube? I don't know how to build a bench. Well, what do I need to do to build a bench? And it kind of outlines it for you. And then after you go to the next one, and you go to the next one, you go to the next one, it's like, man, I can go to this thing for everything, right? It becomes your advisor. It becomes your counselor. So this guy was spending more time, and you can talk to ChatGPT as well. They got audio and voice recognition, and they can tell you ain't got to type it. So he spent more time with the doggone computer than he was with his family, and his wife was giving him ultimatum, like, listen, either that thing goes or we done. And he was like, that was a hard decision. Yeah, this is what my wife said. Should I leave you from my wife? Right? Talking to the freaking AI thing. But this is a real thing. I'm watching this thing, and at the end of it, it was like he had to make a compromise. It worked out as a compromise with AI, where his wife was like, well, he wasn't going to leave it, but I told him to trim it down to so many hours. But he was like, I don't want to leave ChatGPT for my wife. It's done so much for me in my life and in my business and everything else. So yeah, they've taken this, where you had men who had the principles of the Most High, right? And there's a spirit that comes with that. Right? It's just not, just taking down information. There's a spirit that comes with being able to make a decision, because the computer doesn't have a spirit. It's just going off of just facts, just data. And it's off of the data is the same.
And what's dangerous is the fact that it can manipulate your spirit and it doesn't have a spirit.
Right. And what we know is that what they're going off of, these what we call it, now we want to geek out a little bit, these LLMs, these large language models, where they can now do the processing, they're not all accurate, because they're just the models are being trained to function or think a certain way. And when you tap into these models, you're getting a false sense of reality at times. Is it somewhat decent? Yeah, it's somewhat decent. But it's just like reading Genesis, in the second chapter, where it says, "Don't eat of the tree of good and evil, of the knowledge of good and evil." You want to deal with what is 100% good. So now you trust that, and you're going into these different things, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's on point. That's on point." And you may not be able to easily decipher when it goes off. You trusted it so much, it gotta be right. And then now when it goes into its algorithms and its algorithm is flawed and it gives you an answer, you're like, it's always been right. Right?
And it gives you the percentage of accuracy. Not even close.
Right.
To 80%.
Right.
We were talking about the last chapter with lots.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing lots just like that.
Exactly. That's a good point.
That's a lot.
Right. It's taking lots and making himself as if it's the most high.
Trying to figure out what's the chance of the next word.
Right.
You know, like there's a video I think I shared with you guys before. So they do a good job of showing visually how it does it. You show it to one audience, they can catch it. Oh, here's what it's doing. Like kind of like you said earlier, before you said you can like manipulate your spirit because it's looking at the patterns of how we communicate through writing, through talking, and then it can come off as though it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds like how we've been sounding. So working up that data to where we're not sure, we don't have that understanding, that background knowledge of how it's coming to those answers. They can then feel like, oh, this is actually a person. This is the as they say in the Greek, deus ex machina, goes in the machine. And it can appear to be like a spirit in the machine. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds like how it's.
And even in the terms of not just talk to it and it will answer, to the point where you can have songs and have someone speaking, and we know the power of music and songs when you can hear somebody singing. It's not even a person, it's a machine, and so it can get into your soul and spirit and then manipulate you. That's where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Lots even with that. When you have to create melodies for it. Like you said, we were talking about this last time. I think this app called Sono, like a popular one. Timberland had a commercial with Timberland. It's online where he's like messing with it. And even had him sitting back and going like, "Oh, hey, that's pretty good."
Yeah.
I don't have a vocalist. I can get this thing to do the vocals.
Yeah.
I just give it a couple inputs. Boom.
Yeah.
And it's doing a lot to get. Okay, in the melody, a typical melody or a typical transition in the song, this note usually comes next. You know? So it's like you were saying, it seems like how's with the songwriting?
Yeah. It's those things are songwriting. They're trying to copy the voice and spirit of the past individual, like a Tupac or some other artist or whatever that's deceased. They're taking their cadence and then making it new. But they're not gonna, that individual could have said, you know what, I'm gonna make a different cadence. Like, I'm gonna change my style up and now sing or rap or do this in this manner. It wouldn't do that because it doesn't know that person to have done it. So it's not creative. It's just, acting on what's been fed it or what's been given to it. All right, let's go back. Finish up. First Chronicles 27 and 33. And Ahithophel was the king's counselor, and Ushiah the Archite was the king's companion. Right. So we see Ahithophel was his counselor. When you go into the storyline, he was his counselor, but he defected. He conspired against David. And that's it's dangerous when someone who's your counselor, because your counselor or your advisor, kind of knows a lot about you. They've been feeding you a lot of different information. They see how you operate, what things you do, how you receive information, all those things. And then when they leave and take that, that's dangerous because now they know all your hidden secrets. Right? They know a lot of things about you. They know how you operate, and then they go and give that to someone else. In this case, it was his son, that conspired to take the throne away from him. But yes, he was his trusted advisor, and he switched sides and went and became his son's advisor. You read about that in 2 Samuel chapters 15 and 16. Yeah, 2 Samuel chapter 15, 16 goes into the story of Ahithophel, and how we, sometimes I guess people just looking for opportunity. He's like, man, David's kind of old, his son looks like he's gonna be the next. Some people always want to ride with the wave with the next thing that's gonna jump, right? Next thing's gonna pop. So it's been nice, but I'm gonna go ahead.
And you next to power.
Yeah, that's it. They want to stay. They want to stay where the power is. They want to stay where the money is, even if it means betraying my friend, betraying my family, betraying this. I'm going to go do it. And that's what he did. So it doesn't go into here, but it lets you know that he was of this administration at one point in time before he switched sides. So again, that's 2 Samuel chapters 15 and 16. All right, last verse. And after Ahithophel was Jehoiada, the son of Benaiah, and Abiathar, and the general of the king's army was Joab, right? Captain of the host, the general. Right? So it's funny when you see this, sometimes you kind of see where things become relevant in today's society. When you look at the military captains and all these different rankings, you got a general and all of that. It's a good portion that comes from the scriptures, because this is the God book, right? This was here before, the country is what the country was. It was already here, right? Now it's just a translation of what the ancient records were in Hebrew and Greek, but now they get it and he says, oh, that's how they set up rankings and structures. That's how he went and did all these things as pertains to lands and food and all that. Okay, cool. Right? They mimic certain things, but then they added in a lot of pagan things to make it all messed up.
Yeah, we bring it out a lot, but they go into the Catholic Church, even though they'll credit, they'll talk about the franchise model of business, very prevalent across the world.
Mm-hmm.
The Catholic Church is based on that structure. Right, as far as the archdiocese, the small diocese, kind of be like mini versions of the big church.
Mm-hmm.
And even the Catholic Church will set even all themselves at what we just read, the order of the priests, the sons of Aaron, the priest office. So it's like we have a modern franchise you probably go to all the time, for food or for hardware, whatever. Not making that direct through line back to the scripture. Most people don't do that.
Right.
It's like just two steps. I'll take it right back to sons of Aaron, the ordering of the priests, as well as what we're talking about now, the ordering of the king, the ordering of the army. It's right here in the scriptures. That structure. That framework.
All right. Thus concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Again, the chronicling of the administration that King David set up with some insights. Lord's will, everybody was able to get the precepts and the understanding. As always, if you had a comment, you may not have misunderstanding, but you probably had some more further in-depth discussions. Always write it down and then bring that to the classes on Tuesdays and Friday nights. So next week, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 12 and 13 for next week's Sabbath service lesson. Matthew 12 and 13. And I'm going to make sure I keep announcing the holy days, because I know sometimes there's days where some brothers or some sisters are like, oh, I didn't know that the Day of Atonement was coming up, or I didn't know. What if I didn't know? Well, there's no excuse, because every class, we're letting it be known. Memorial blowing the trumpet is September 20th, Saturday night, right? 2 weeks from today, sundown, is the memorial blowing the trumpets, the 7th new moon. Then the 29th, 10 days from that, Monday night is the Day of Atonement. We advise, if it's possible, take off Tuesday, right? Don't take off Monday, take off Tuesday. Day of Atonement is Monday night. Take off Tuesday during the day. If it is in your power, you got PTO, you have whatever, take off so that you can devote that day to the atonement. And then 5 days from thence will be the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles. That's going to be a Saturday night. All right. So again, September 20th, September 29th, October 4th. Those are the 3 main days. So no one can say, oh, I didn't know. If you have questions like we had last night, certain things, make sure you bring it to the Sabbath, bring it to the class, not the Sabbath, but bring it to the classes. And if that's too long, we have a group text, drop it in its group text, or send me a text directly, or send the Kahanyam a text directly to just question on certain things. All right. So with as we say, our housekeeping, we want to now make sure for those who are watching and listening, if you want to participate in the classes, you can always join us through the teleconference line. The number's there on the marquee, 667-770-1085 with the PIN code of 521455. If you have a phone or computer, we also are on Zoom, profitabletalks.com. You can dial in. It is Tuesday nights, Friday nights, 7 to 10. For those who want to support, make offerings and donations to HYK to keep this word furthering, to keep the lights on and everything else, you can make a donation or a check through a check or money order to Hayash Rala Kanas. That's rolling on the marquee, how to spell it, and then 3826B Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19140. If you want to do it easier, online, digital, you can do it through PayPal, paypal.me/HYK12, and then you can do it through Zelle, which is 646-620-7378. You should see Hayash Rala Kanas as the name that comes up when you do it through Zelle. All right. So again, like as always, like and share this video to get the analytics up, to get this truth out, and to further on this word. So with that, I'll say Shalom, Shar Shabbat. Most High's will, everybody has a 12 remaining Sabbath day. And to the next time we fellowship, Most High's will be Tuesday night for the class. So I'll say everyone stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah Natalanawa, Par Yahagapet, the water Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Af Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. A might upon you on Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. For the closing prayers. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Shammai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Waha Alahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shamal Ayel, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wakazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'ai, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalanwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Hagana, Rachanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Katayanawa, Laha Akim,
Wa'akua, Wayasha'ala, from God, Wa'iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, for water, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabat Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akla. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel and the house of books or the schools. In Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. Again, Shah Shabbat, have a Tuah, remaining Sabbath. Shalom, Yashallah.